Good evening. It is Wednesday. Oh, I don't know what it is. It could be any day. It's Wednesday, April something after
April
Easter.
20th.
April 20th. Let me write down April 20th. Oh, well, it's gone. Oh, well, it is gone. It's Wednesday, April 20th. My name is Doug Griffin. This is my Wednesday night Bible study. We're in the book of John. We're in John chapter 5. We've been, I don't know, maybe a month ago, started going through verse by verse. It's easier to understand what the Bible is saying that way. You don't have to even guess really because it's right there if you just go verse by verse. We are in John chapter 5, and Jesus is about to get in trouble because he healed somebody on the Sabbath. If you've ever gotten in trouble for doing something nice, just say, oh, that's just like Jesus. Uh, so he's about to get in trouble for it. Let me go to here. Okay. Now, so in John chapter 5, verse 5, this is where we left off last week. It says, now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. Was where? Um, by the, is it the east gate? So I'm getting in trouble with Tim Chisholm. Is it the north gate and the water's flowing to the east, or is the east gate and the water's flowing to the north? Anyway, near the temple. Oh, the temple is actually near the east gate, and the water is flowing to the north. Anyway, there's a pool with five porches. Just means five, I'm gonna call them balconies, but porches with roofs over where people would sit and bake in the sun, and they would wait for this new phenomenon that started happening. Had not been going on for 1,000 years. It was new that the water would suddenly stir, and when it did that, that meant an angel had touched the water, and whoever got there first was healed. Just free healing. You didn't have to have faith. You just had to have speed. Get down there, and whoever was there first got healed. It's just I am handing out free healing. It was a sign that Jesus had spoken. Well, God had spoken through Ezekiel and a few other prophets talking about the water that was the healing water that would flow from the temple as a sign of the Messiah. God's giving them so many signs. Here, how you'll know when the Messiah is in your midst. The Messiah that you've been waiting for 1,500 years, ever since I spoke to Abraham. This Messiah, you'll know it because there'll be signs, stars in the sky, and this will happen, and that. So many signs, so that none of them will be able to stand before heaven and go, "I had no idea." Yes, you did. And again, they don't have magazines and novels and streaming services. They only have the Torah. That's everybody knew the Bible. They heard it every week in temple. They had no other information. They weren't reading the stories of Switzerland. So they knew these stories, they knew these scriptures, and when Jesus shows up and they deny him and turn against him, God holds them really, really accountable because they have no excuse. So this is another one of the signs. There'll be water, healing waters will flow from the temple. So sure enough, then an angel will come down, touch the water. First person got in would heal. So Jesus goes there on purpose on the Sabbath, just trying to stir up trouble. Verse 5, now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. Jesus picks him so that no one would go, well, he just got sick the other day, so how do you know that was a miracle? He'd had this infirmity 38 years, everybody had seen it. So when this person gets healed, it's like, oh, so that's why God let that go on so long? So that when he brings the cure, many people will be blessed by it. They won't be able to just talk it away. Oh, God, let that get so bad. Yeah, so that when he heals it, you'll go, oh, this is a miracle, Donna. You, why did the doctor gave this such a bad report? Oh my! So that when the healing comes, you'll be able to say, everybody will have to say, well, that was God because look what type of cancer that was. Look what type of lymphoma that was. Look what type, and you said, yeah, and then God healed it. So I need him to get all the credit because you know how bad this was. So, so, so just God healing a headache, you just, the aspirin cured it. It wasn't really God. But this particular disease, this man had 38 years. And I'm just saying, in your life, if something, just because you heard a bad report, it's not bad like, oh, that's so bad, even God can't do it. It's like, that's so bad. When God fixes it, he's going to get all the glory. That's why it's so bad. That's why the doctor said, oh my goodness, because God's going to do this big miracle. So you have to think that way. So this man, 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he had already been in that condition a long time. See, Jesus knew he's been in that condition a long. Uh, he says to him, "Do you want to be made well?" And so the guy, they're writing it that way because that's an odd question to ask somebody who's standing by a pool hoping, well, he's not standing there, but he's lying on that bed hoping to get to the water. Do you want to be, what do you mean, do I want to be made well? Why else would I be here? So that's why Jesus is asking the question that way, because he wants to know, are you so used to that condition that you've accepted it? It's become your calling card. Because for some people, their complaining is their calling card. There's this, I, I have to believe that no one from my apartment building is listening to this Bible study. But there are certain people that can't wait to tell you their condition. My wife and I run into them sometimes, and they can't wait. Oh, look at this card! Like that's their sense of identity. They can't. Oh, let me tell you about the latest thing that's about to be removed. And that's just who they are. So Jesus says, "Do you want to be made well, or has this become your calling card?" So the man says to him, "Sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water stirred up, but while I'm coming, another steps down before me." So I don't. He's already telling him, "Here's why it won't work. There's no one." So basically, no, I don't want to be made. Not that I don't want to, but I can't. I don't expect it. I don't expect to be made well. If that's what you're asking, and like Jesus said, that's not what I'm asking. Actually, I wasn't asking, do you expect to be made well, or do you want to be? So he says to him, "Take a bed and walk," just to see what the guy's going to do. Are you? Okay, you give me all the reasons why you don't think it's going to happen. Get up, pick up your bed, and walk, and let's see what you do. Are you going to complain or tell me why it can't happen? Are you going to believe? So it says, and immediately the man was made well. So he took up his bed and walked. He stopped complaining. Hey, the healer's right here. I'm going to stop telling people why it can't happen. And when you get your diagnosis from the doctor or from the banker or from the whoever, stop telling everybody how bad it is. Just know it doesn't matter how bad it is. That's nothing to God. Doesn't like God's going, oh, I didn't know it was that bad. It's not. In a word, be made well, and it's done. Okay, so here's the problem. The very next sentence says, and that day was the Sabbath. And so that's where I stopped last week, because Jesus is about to get in trouble. I want to talk about the Sabbath because we have the wrong idea about the Sabbath, and what it means. We make it too holy, and we don't understand what God meant by the Sabbath day and make it holy, because Jesus gets in trouble. You healed on the Sabbath day, and it's a holy day to the Lord, and you're not supposed to do anything on the Sabbath, and that's not true. So let's examine these scriptures about the Sabbath and try to figure out what is they're saying. In Exodus chapter 20, after they had gotten to Mount Sinai, they've been delivered from Egypt. God brought them to Mount Sinai and said, let me start giving you these rules. The whole book of Exodus, which I've just started teaching on Sundays, is God trying to correct their thinking. For 175 years or so, no, 215 years, they'd been in Egypt, and they had adapted their death theology, and God is having to correct it, which is another reason why I'm saying God did not send them to Egypt for them to stay there and think, oh, now I'm going to have to correct it. It's like, well, then why'd you send them there in the first place? I didn't. I sent them there for 5 years, and then they stayed for another 215. That's on them. They stayed for at least another 75 years while Joseph was alive, and they had every opportunity to leave while Joseph was alive, but they didn't, because the provisions of Joseph was better in their mind than provisions that I would have for them in Canaan. It was better to stay here under Joseph in Egypt than to go back to Canaan and trust God. So then there became a Pharaoh who they did not know, and they did not know them, and he forced them to stay. So now they're learning all these Egyptian rules, and God is having to brainwash them. He's like, literally, let me wash your brain out of all this horrible Egyptian culture that you've learned, and explain, thou should not kill. That's not a good thing. Thou should not steal. He's explaining this to them, and he says to them in Exodus chapter 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And what does that mean? And that's the big thing. He says, 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath day of the Lord your God. In it you shall do no work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who's within your gate. He has to be specific because, okay, I won't do work, but I'll make my servants do a whole bunch of work. He's saying, take a day off. I understand that you've got to worry about your crops, but for one day, don't worry. Trust that I'm taking care of you on that day. That's what holy, on the seventh day is my day for you to obey me and not you to worry about having to take care of yourself. I want one day where you just sit back and relax and not worry about it. How do I know this? We'll just keep reading. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and he hallowed it. So he was done. And on the seventh day, he's saying, remember how the whole story of creation, this is not a coincidence. We're not supposed to read the story of creation and go, oh, isn't that cute? There's a lesson in it. So God did everything, and on the seventh day, he was done because his work was done. So I want you to remember that idea that on the seventh day, your work is done. You don't have to do anything on the seventh. Not, how dare you? You don't have to do any work. Can you laugh on the Sabbath day and enjoy yourself? Yes, but you don't have to but if I don't do this, I'm gonna run out of food. And if I don't do this, I'm gonna run out of. No, that's not. I want you to think there's a day where you just, okay, God's taking care of me today. Now, Exodus chapter 16, he had spoken of this earlier in verse 4 and 5. When they had asked for food, we need food. We're so mad that God's not gonna feed us, which kind of bugged God, bugged him. What do you mean I provided for you food? Why do you every day think I'm gonna forget and go, oh my goodness, I forgot to send you some food? Why do you think that? So he says in chapter 16, verse 4, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you. Uh-oh. I don't see that anyone has said hello. So I wonder if, I'm assuming I'm on in live. Okay, normally people have said hello. All the hello people have not said hello. So he says, I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. And the people shall go out and gather a certain quota every day. So you don't have to worry about it. You're going to gather your quota each day, a certain amount each day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my way or not. Who just said hi? Okay, thanks, Rodney. So I'm going to test them to see, hey, are you going to walk in my way or not? So I'm doing it this way on purpose because God's not testing us because he doesn't know. He's testing us so that we'll find out. The teacher gave you the test in class so that you would find out where you were and how much you had learned. Oh, this is what she's been teaching all week, or this is what he's been teaching all week. I know 9 of these 10 questions really well, but one of them I don't know. This is for you to know how well you know. The test is not for the teacher because the teacher was watching you, could see when you raised your hand and when you look confused and when you're participating and the teacher already knows what you know. You don't know what you know. That's why you weren't paying attention because you didn't think you had to pay attention. I don't need to pay attention. I already know all this. Let me give you a test and show you what you actually know and what you don't. So he says when he tests you, it's not for God saying, I don't have no idea if they really believe me or not. I already know. So the test is for us. I'm doing it on purpose to see if you can walk in my ways or not. He says, and it shall be on the 6th day, they shall prepare what they bring in, prepare it, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. On the 6th day, take it, cook it, do all of that, and it's going to be twice as much as what you cook normally. It'll be twice as much. So you won't, on the 7th day, you won't have to do anything. Verse 22. And so it was on the 6th day that they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for each person. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses and said, oh my goodness, it's exactly what God said. And I was like, yeah, duh. Verse 23. Then he said to them, this is what the Lord has said. So tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake today and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until the morning. So cook it and bake it all now. I don't want you to do any baking tomorrow, no cooking tomorrow. Bake it all now. Cook it all now. And then you'll actually be able to save it and for tomorrow. But do not do any work. Just believe that I gave you enough for today that will cover tomorrow. So it'll be kept until morning. So they laid it up until morning as Moses commanded, and it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Now, please know on other days, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if they tried to gather some extra in the morning, it had turned to worms because God said, I'm feeding you enough for today. Don't get nervous about tomorrow and think you have to store up all this for tomorrow. That's you not trusting me. That's you thinking, oh, I better store up because God, he may go on vacation tomorrow, or he may sleep, or he may get busy trying to help what's going on in Europe. So that's an act in that case. I'm not saying God never tells you to save up. I'm saying for them, he says specifically, I'm going to give you a certain quota each day because I need you to believe that I'm still going to be here tomorrow. Your problem is you don't think I'm going to be here tomorrow. And that is our problem. God's not going to be here tomorrow. God's going to forget that I need healing. God's going to forget that I need my rent paid. That's where we freak out. So I better store up for today, and we get nervous about today. And that's why Jesus says, take no thought for tomorrow. What am I going to eat? What about don't because I want you to believe that I'm going to be there tomorrow and I've got a plan tomorrow. And tomorrow I'll tell you the plan. If you're worrying about it today, you can't change anything that's going to happen tomorrow by worrying about it today. He says you can't change one thought, but your thoughts can't change tomorrow. Oh, if I worry about it all night, that'll fix it. No, well, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So how's your worrying about all night going to fix tomorrow? Just relax today. So he says, just get enough for today. But every time that they would go and try to, well, let's put some extra in case tomorrow God's gone. When they would look at that extra in the morning, it would turn to worms. It would be stinky and moldy. God did that on purpose. But on the day before the Sabbath, they were able to gather extra, and it didn't stink because God said, I want you to gather extra on this day, and then don't do any work tomorrow. Just make that a holy day to me where you are not worried about cooking and work. God didn't say he wasn't going to do any work on that day. He says, you don't do any work. So it did not stink, nor were there any worms in it. Then Moses said, eat that today. This is verse 25 of Exodus 16. Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you will not find it in the field. So all that extra that you stored up on the day before the Sabbath, eat that today. Don't go into the field. You won't find any food in the field. I provided enough for you so that today you can just relax and eat what the Lord has given you and enjoy what the Lord is. And it's a day where you're not worried about anything. See, I've already provided for today in advance. 6 days shall you gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none for you to go gather. So don't go out there, start looking around. Do not cook on the seventh day. Don't look around on the fields because that's an insult to me. Do it all on the sixth day, and on the seventh day, just enjoy it. Okay, now it happened, verse 27, that some of the people went out on the seventh day to gather, but they found none. So even though God said, don't go out on the seventh day together, they still went out on the seventh day together. What's wrong with people? They had enough for the seventh day, but they just didn't. Well, maybe there'll be some. I'll go out and try. And when God says don't do that, there will be a punishment because you're showing lack of faith in God. It's not the fact you're working on the seventh day. It's that God said don't. I've already taken care of it. Okay. So they went out, they found none, and the Lord said to Moses, how long do you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws? Now, he's not saying this to Moses like Moses did it, but he's saying, your people, how long do you refuse to do what I say? See, for the Lord has given you this Sabbath. Therefore, he gives you on the sixth day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place. Let no man go out of his place on the seventh day. Just stay home. If you're going out in the field, you can go out in the field and play. You can go out in the field and have it strike up a domino game or something. He's not saying you must stay in your house and lock yourself in. If you're going out in the field to gather wood, he says some people went out to gather wood. Some people went out to gather food. Don't do that. Just stay in your place. If you're going out to sing a song, you can do that. So the goal is not to trap you in your house on the seventh day. If you're going out to find food and so, you should have done that on the sixth day. I already have enough food for you. Just stay inside if that's why you're going out. Don't let that be the reason you're going out. People have turned that into, you may not go out of your house at all on the seventh day, period, and do anything. You can't even walk down the street. That's not what's God's concern. He used the example of people literally going out to find food. Don't do that. I've given you enough on the sixth day. And so for people who are going to work 7 days a week, now, whatever that seventh, like, are you in trouble if you have a job that makes you work on Sunday? No. As long as you take a day off, as long as you don't say, I got to work 7 days a week, 200 hours a day, or else my needs won't be met. That's an insult to God. But if your off day is Wednesday, fine. He's saying, give me a seventh day whenever that happens to fall, where you don't think, I got to work 7 days. No, if you work 6 days, trust that I will give, enough will come in on your paycheck to cover the seventh day. That's an act of faith. It's like tithing is an act of faith, right? I'm going to take this amount of money and give it back. Even though I need it, I'm going to trust that if I do what God said, he'll provide my needs. Like it'll turn out I won't need that 10%. So that's an act of faith. That's what tithing is. You're saying to God, I trust you so much that I can take a part of this money and give it back to you. I trust that you'll take care of my needs. It's the same thing. I trust that I don't have to work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and give myself a heart attack and an ulcer. I can work 6 days and take a day off and trust that I'll still have enough to meet my needs. Okay, so that's the whole point. Okay, so when he says, let no man go out on the seventh day, he doesn't mean you can't leave your, and go roller skating. He says, don't go out because you think I won't meet your need and now you got to work. Exodus chapter 35, verse 2. Work shall be done for 6 days, but the seventh day shall be a holy day for you, a Sabbath day of rest to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. So he's really clear. If you go out on the seventh day and do work, you will be put to death. You shall kindle no fire throughout your dwellings on the seventh day. He's not against fire. He's saying on the sixth day you cooked food with your fire. So when he says you shall kindle no fire, doesn't mean you have to sit in the dark on the seventh day. Don't cook all the food you cooked on the sixth day is good enough. So don't make a fire to cook food. If you're cold, you can make a fire. You have to sit there and go, oh, we're so cold. He said, don't kindle fire. He means to cook. He told you, cook on the sixth day and just know there'll be enough food for the seventh day. So don't cook on the seventh day. You should have cooked on the sixth day, like I told you. Don't do anything as far as meeting your need. Trust that I've met your need on the seventh day. So here we are. And he says, and if you do it, you'll be put to death. Numbers chapter 15, verse 32. Now, while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. Did God say, don't do that? Don't go out in the field. Don't try to build a fire. He's gathering sticks not because he likes some sticks. He's gathering sticks so he can cook his food because he didn't trust and do what God told him to do on the sixth day. So those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moses and Aaron and to all the congregation. God had said, you'll be put to death if you do this. And the guy's like, I don't think God really meant that. You know how God is. He's forgetful. God will say one thing and then forget he said it 10 years later. No, that's not that God. We think we serve that God. I know God said that in the Bible, but that was 1,000 years ago. I'm sure God forgot that he said that. Oh, surprise. He didn't forget. So they brought him to all the congregation. They put him under guard because it had not been explained what should be done to him. Because no one had ever God showed up in fire and gave these commandments, and no one had ever disobeyed just right to God's face about that particular thing. So they didn't know what to do. So they just put him on the guard, and they went to Moses like, what should we do? This man has disobeyed God. Then the Lord said to Moses, verse 35 of Numbers 15, the man must surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones outside the camp. Because I said you'll be put to death if you do it, and then right in my face he did it, so I have to put him to death. Otherwise, people think, oh, God doesn't mean it when he says don't kill or don't steal or don't commit adultery or don't worship that idol. He'll say, oh, you're going to get in trouble, but you won't really get in trouble. And the substitute teachers in your life who said, okay, I'm going to do it, and never followed through on it. The parents in your life says, okay, I'm going to get you and never followed through on it. You said to yourself at the age of 3, oh, I don't really have to listen to them because they say, I will spank you, but they don't follow it. So that's just words, apparently, that they just say. And that child never has to listen. Those students never listen to that citizens never have to listen to that police department. Because if you're not going to follow through on your laws, then all you've said is, I make these threats, but you don't really have to follow through on them. And so there's lawlessness in those places, and it's the fault of the person for not following through. I got to tell you, you only have to follow through once with one person. And they go, oh, you really follow through. Okay, cool. So God said, yeah, you have to stone him to death. Not because I'm mean, but because I just said, if you do this, I'll stone you. And then he walked out and did it. So the Lord said to Moses, the man must surely be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him with stones outside the camp. And he made everybody do it so that cannot be done secretly. Everybody's got to come out and throw so that they see this is the punishment for it, so that they know when I say something, I mean it. And God's doing things to protect us. He's not coming with arbitrary laws. So when you say to your child, you have to grab my hand before we walk across the street, do not just run across the street. When they start to run without grabbing your hand, you got to snatch them and give punishment. They need to know because there's a worse punishment if they run in the middle of the street and a car hits them. So there's a reason why you follow through and then you have to punish them, because they need to know this is to save your life. And God is saying, I give rules to save your life. And if I let it slide in this one, then there's going to be some other rule down the line that I'm going to follow through on. That I'm going to give, and you're not going to follow through on it. And it's going to kill you. So I need to, right away, as soon as possible, let me immediately let people know there is punishment for this, and I mean it, so that I won't have to do this 59,000 times. So the Lord commanded Moses, all the congregation brought him outside the camp and stoned him with stones, and he died. So now they go, okay, I don't think I'm going to do that, because I can see clearly this is the punishment. I have a visual aid for how to teach you. I was like, visual aids. But anyway, I have a visual, I can see what will happen. Thank you for that live demonstration. And now I'm good. And my wife would always say she didn't have to get spanked for the same thing twice. Oh, thank you. Now I know that's a sin. Of course, she was frustrated because sometimes she wasn't clear what was. These people were clear. But the whole point is, once I get spanked for that, now I know. Thank you. And you're stupid if you get spanked for the same thing twice. What is going on with you? Okay. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 21. Thus says the Lord, take heed to yourselves and bear no burden on the Sabbath day, nor bring it in by the gates of Jerusalem. Bear no burden on the Sabbath day, nor bring it in by the gates. What is he talking about? Nor carry a burden out of your houses on the Sabbath day, nor do any work, but hallow the Sabbath day as I commanded your fathers. Here's what he means by carrying a burden. People would bring their, I would say, groceries, their crops, all their stuff, and they would start buying and selling in the gates on the Sabbath day, when God said, don't do that. Don't do commerce. You can do commerce on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 6 days a week. You can do it on the seventh day. Do not buy and sell, because you're not trusting that you've made enough money on the previous 6 days that it will sustain you on the seventh day. I promise you, if you just do it 6 days on the seventh day, you will have made enough money. You will be sustained. But if you don't trust me and you think, no, I got to sell 7 days a week, then that's a spit in my face, where you're thinking I'm not good enough to protect you. So when he says being a burden, he's talking about don't carry your stuff in and start buying and selling. He says don't carry burden out of your houses on this. So you people who have all your wear, you made shoes, you've made clothes, don't take those out of your houses to the gate on the Sabbath day and buy and sell, nor do any work. Hallow the Sabbath day as I commanded you. Now some people will see you're carrying a burden on the Sabbath day. Okay, so Nehemiah gets very specific. That's why don't listen to somebody who's not read the entire Bible, because they're going to take something. You're carrying a burden. You can't carry a computer on the Sabbath day. You can't carry your shoes on the Sabbath day. It says don't carry a burden. So Nehemiah is very specific about it, of what he meant by carry a burden. Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 15. In those days, and I'm saying this because when Jesus said to the man, take up your bed and walk. You're carrying a burden on the Sabbath day, and that's against the law, right? Is that what it meant by carrying a burden? Okay. In those days, I saw people in Judah treading wine presses on the Sabbath and bringing in sheaves and loading donkeys with wine, grapes, figs, and all kinds of burdens, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. So they brought in their wheat, their sheaves, their wine, their grapes or figs. They called them burdens, but all their big heavy loads on the Sabbath day. They're treading out wine and trying to sell some wine on the Sabbath day, when God says, no, don't. Trust that I've helped you make enough money. Give me one day, because it's a sign of faith that I'm meeting your needs. So that's what he called burdens, all kinds of burdens, grapes, figs. Picking up your bed is not going to the market and selling. Jesus didn't say, pick up your bed and go sell it in the market real quick. That's not the same thing. When he says don't bear any burdens, he means your produce that you're trying to sell, which they brought into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. And I warned them about the day in which they were selling provisions. Nehemiah 13, verse 15. Men of Tyre dwelt there also, who brought in fish and all kinds of goods and sold them on the Sabbath day to the children of Judah in Jerusalem. So non-Jews would come and sell and buy fish and all this stuff on the Sabbath day. Then I contended with the nobles of Judah and said to them, What evil thing is that you do to us by which you profane the Sabbath day? Did not your fathers do thus? And did not our God bring all this disaster on us and on this city? Yet you bring added wrath on Israel by profaning the Sabbath. So it was at the gates of Jerusalem, as it began to be dark before the Sabbath, that I commanded the gates to be shut and charged that they must not be open until after the Sabbath. So Nehemiah is saying, and Nehemiah is not a prophet, he's a general there. And Ezra, and anyway, so he's shutting the gates so they can't trade. It's like, as an act of faith, we're saying we don't have to work 7 days a week. That's all the Sabbath is about, is honoring God and saying, I'm not going to set. It doesn't mean you can't go to a movie and enjoy it. How does going to a movie have anything to do with buying and selling goods? That's an act of faith. In fact, I'm going to spend money on the Sabbath day. I'm going to go out and enjoy myself on the Sabbath day. I'm going to have a big dinner with my family. I'm going to do, because that's an act of saying, I know God's going to protect me. I don't have to work today. Okay, then I posted some of my servants at the gate so that no burdens would be brought in on the Sabbath day. So a burden is your wares, your goods that you're selling in order to make money. Matthew 12. So when they see this man on the Sabbath day carrying his bed, they're about to challenge him. Not the same thing as carrying a burden on the Sabbath day. That's not what they were talking about. But people who have not read all of the scriptures will read one scripture and go, oh, see what it says here? And then you need the context. You need learn from a teacher who's read the whole Bible, of which there are many. So make sure that they're able to bring in other scriptures to back up what they say. You go, okay, this man has read the whole thing, or this woman has read the whole, and they're backing up what they're saying. They're not just taking some scripture out of context. Matthew chapter 12, verse 9. Now, when he had departed from there, he went into the synagogue. Obviously, we're talking about Jesus, right? And behold, there was a man who had a withered hand. And they asked him, saying, so they're challenging Jesus, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? That they might accuse him. You're working on the Sabbath. Am I? Is this what they meant by work? Okay. Then he said to them, so Jesus is answering them back, what man is there among you who has one sheep? And if it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not lay a hold of it and lift it out? If you're walking your sheep on the Sabbath just on your way home, not to sell it or anything, and it falls into a pit, you pull it out. You don't say, oops, sorry, got to leave you there till tomorrow. You pull your sheep out. Duh. So he says, of how much more value then is a man than a sheep? Therefore, is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath? Then he said to the man, stretch out your hand. So this sheep was injured and I helped it. This man has been injured and I'm helping it. Does this have more value than a sheep? You would help your sheep on the Sabbath day and pull him out of a ditch. I can't help this man and heal him on the Sabbath day. He said, stretch out your hand, and he stretched it out, and it was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and plotted against him, how they might destroy him. You are not following the law. We got to get this man. He's defying us. Because they totally misunderstood the law. They were teachers of the Bible and didn't understand it. Luke chapter 13, verse 14. But the ruler of the synagogue answered with indignation because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. There's a different healing that had taken place. And Jesus is purposely doing this stuff on the Sabbath, by the way. That's what I'm saying. Because this is a different healing than the withered hand on the Sabbath. Jesus is trying to make them crazy. He waits until the Sabbath to do all of these because he knows they're hung up. He went to the man by the pool on the Sabbath. He could have gone another day. Let me go on the Sabbath because I know it's going to make these people crazy. Because he wants to bring up your junk and make you face it. So Jesus will do things in a certain way. God will do things in a certain way on purpose so your junk will come out. So you have to look and examine it and go, why does that make me so angry? Why did that make me react that way? What's wrong with me? Okay. So the ruler of the synagogue, this is Luke 13, answered with indignation because Jesus had healed on the Sabbath. And he said to the crowd, there are 6 days on which men ought to work. Therefore, become and healed on them. This is the ruler of the synagogue talking to everybody else, not talking to Jesus. There are 6 days when men ought to work. So he's calling healing work. Therefore, come and be healed on them and not on the Sabbath day. So this is what Moses did to me. He said, don't work on this. He meant healing. Did he? Then the Lord answered him and said, hypocrite, does not each one of you on the Sabbath day loose his ox or donkey from the stall and lead it away to get water? On the Sabbath day, just because the Sabbath day, you take your dog out and you take him for a walk. You know, say, oh, it's sunny, you got to hold it all day. Don't you let your dog pee on the Sabbath day? Don't you take your donkey or your ox and take it and have it get some water so we can get some refreshment and then go back? Won't you unloose your donkey and take it out? He says, so ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, who Satan has bound, think of it, he says, for 18 years, be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath? Can I loose her from the bond that she's in? You loose your donkey and you untie him and take him out like that. I can't loose this woman from her bound. You calling that work? I'm just loosening her from her bound. I'm just taking, this man is like your sheep fell into a pit. I'm just taking him out of the pit. I'm not, this is not work. This is an act of grace. It's an act of God. It's an act of mercy. You do this yourself on the Sabbath day. You take your, so you're being a hypocrite. Okay. Luke chapter 14. Another thing on the Sabbath day, because that's how Jesus is. And behold, there was a certain man before him who had dropsy. And Jesus answering spoke to the lawyers and the Pharisees, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? But they kept silent, and he took him and he healed him and he let him go. Then he answered them, saying, which of you having a donkey or an ox fallen into a pit, so this is a similar story as the other one, will not immediately pull him out on the Sabbath day? So I'm just doing what you would have done to an animal. I'm doing this to a human. Don't they deserve it more? Hebrews chapter 4, talking again about the Sabbath. This is people trying to explain, but on the Sabbath, you can't do anything. The Sabbath, you got to just stay home. And because that's keeping it, well, you've made that up. That's not what Moses was talking about when the law was initially given. Don't work 7 days. Take one day where you trust that God will meet your need. Doesn't mean you can't heal somebody on the Sabbath day. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy entertainment. It's all about working because God